Welcome. This video will demonstrate all the different techniques and mechanics that are used in Cold War speedrunning that we use in order to achieve the best possible times in the maps that we play. An important thing to note is that this video assumes that all of your weapons, field upgrades, and skills are at the max level, as that is a requirement for most, if not all, of these techniques. Another thing to note is that if you're curious on how to unlock purple starting weapons, there is a video link in the description explaining how you can unlock them because it's been in the game for quite some time and it's pretty commonly known. Enjoy the video.
Okay, so the first movement tech that we use in Cold War is something called sprint canceling. And before we even try sprint canceling, there's a couple different ways you can do it. The way that I prefer is in the gameplay settings. You can change your sprint behavior to hold, and there are different methods you can do, but for me it's easiest to do hold. And what this means is, in order to sprint while moving, I must hold down my sprint key. And then as soon as I let go of it, I stop sprinting. And in Cold War, when sprinting, there is no stamina regen. So you always have max stamina as soon as you stop sprinting. So in order to maximize this, you sprint for the initial burst, which is usually about 1 to 2 seconds, and then you stop sprinting. So if we sprint and stop and then sprint again, we're maximizing our boost. So if I time this here, running from end to end of the map with regular sprinting, we'll see how long it takes. About 6 seconds. But now, if I sprint using sprint canceling and maximizing it, making sure I reset as fast as many times as I can, cut off almost a full second, just about a half second. So basically what you want to be doing is sprinting, let go, sprint, let go, sprint, and just resetting and getting used to that rhythm when you're playing. And this way you'll be able to move around the map as fast as possible and with the least issues. Usually, as well, at the end of a sprint, if you're kind of going to a certain destination, you don't need to sprint anymore, I like to end it off with a slide. It just kind of gets me to where I need to be faster. So that is sprint canceling. Another big thing to mention when it comes to movement, especially with the sprint canceling, is you always want to be sprint canceling with your fists whenever possible, because running with your fists is just the fastest method of movement. It's faster than melee weapons as well. It's simply, I believe actually melee weapons are mostly the same. The smaller ones like the ballistic knife, the shovel, and just a regular combat knife. But whenever possible, always be sprinting with your fists out. If you need to have your weapon out while sprinting, let's say you're running and gunning, or like on Mauer, during the Easter egg, you have 2 weapons and you don't have fists as an option. You always want to make sure you're running with the faster weapon. In this case, where I have my fists, I'll run with fists. But if I have to run with Gallo, the current Gallo setup I have has no stock as the attachment. I'll show now. This. No stock is slower than Marathon. If I know I'm going to be running with my Gallo out, I'm going to switch to Marathon stock. Because now, if I have to run with my Gallo out, it's going to be faster than if I had no stock. In the document where this video is linked, near the top it explains, well, it doesn't explain, but it shows the 2 different options for your stock on Gallo, and the 2 are no stock and Marathon. And the reason it shows both is because running with no stock is slower than Marathon, but having no stock when you're not, running around and needing to shoot and run at the same time and you're just, let's say, in spawn, it's good to have no stock for the aim down sight speed. So they have their own functions, but if you're going to be running, make sure you always have whatever the fastest thing to run with is in your hand. There are a couple instances where things you think are heavier are actually slower. So for example, on D Machine, the wonder weapon, stuck behind the wall here, as you can see, is actually faster to run with in your hands than it is to run with a gallow with marathon stock. I know it sounds weird because the wonder weapon's massive, but running like this with the gallow with marathon stock is actually slower than if you just had the wonder weapon out and doing sprint canceling. The M16 is faster than running with the Ray K on Firebase, and so is the gallow. On Mauer, once you have the Cerberus, you want to be running with the Cerberus. Until then, you want to be running with your gallow with marathon stock. And before you've purchased your gallow with marathon stock, you'll be running with your fists. And then on Forsaken, running with your fists. And then once you have the axe is a melee weapon and it has higher movement speed than if you had the M16. So being aware and being conscious of the weapons you're running with in your hands and what attachments they have to maximize that movement speed, so long as they don't provide too many deficits to your weapon, it can be important for making sure you're moving around the map as fast as possible. So the next big tech I would say we use, I kind of am just doing these in a random order. They're not really prioritized, but the next one would be canceling out knife lunges so you don't get stuck on zombies. So normally, if you were to knife a zombie while moving, you lunge into them and it pulls you forward. Typically when this happens, you sometimes grab drops you don't want to grab. So in order to bypass this, what you can do is run and jump at a zombie when knifing them, and this achieves the knife kill, but rather than lunging, you jump through the zombie. I'll demonstrate now. So I'm simply running at the zombie, and I jump and knife at the same time so that I cancel out my lunge. And I keep my forward momentum as well, and that way I don't have to stop moving. Another way you can achieve this, to cancel out the knife lunge, is to simply backstep when you knife, and that prevents the game from pulling you inward during a lunge. So again, run, jump, and knife, and it'll pull you through the zombie and keep your momentum. Or backstep and knife at the same time. Next movement tip would be reload canceling, or rather, not reload canceling, but maximizing the downtime during a reload. So just empty out the mag here. And as you know, moving while reloading, you can sprint in Cold War, but it's not as fast as if you were doing your regular sprint canceling. You can sprint cancel while still reloading, but it's still just not as fast. So sometimes what we do, we being most of the top players in Cold War, is just different ways to keep momentum while reloading. Sometimes it can be just reload a bullet and then slide, and then get a couple sprints out, then reload, slide, get a couple sprints out, just maybe even jump slide while reloading. Keeping this kind of pattern is a little bit tough, but it's kind of just a practice-based thing. But the biggest thing with it is maintaining momentum while shooting and being able to kind of dance around the map while also maintaining a reload, because with the Gallo, which is one of the most common weapons used in the speedruns, you only have 12 bullets, and when you get up into those higher rounds, making sure you have bullets in the magazine is going to be important while you're still moving around the map. So just take some time to practice and reloading while jumping and sliding and keeping that momentum, kind of like Black Ops 3 movement. It doesn't give you the same amount of momentum as it does in Black Ops 3, but it's a good way to keep momentum while reloading in Cold War. So the next two things I'm going to demonstrate consist around perks. So the first thing is going to be perk sliding, which essentially is just when you're buying a perk,
it's a way to keep momentum, so you're not standing really slowly, and you know when you drink a perk you kind of can't run, so you're stuck at a walking pace. So this method is going to allow you to keep momentum up, and essentially all you're going to do is, while drinking a perk, walk in the direction you want to go, and then just jump, and while you've jumped, slide. If it's not working and you're going in a straight line and you jump and you can't slide and you just crouch, it's because you're not building enough air momentum. And so basically, it's kind of weird. It's like if you've ever played Counter-Strike or any kind of game that has airspeed momentum. The difference between just being able to do this versus crouching is I'm getting more momentum because of the hill. Or in a regular case, if I don't have a hill, like this flat surface, if I walk and crouch, I'm just going to crouch rather than slide. So instead, when you're jumping, if you turn just a little bit, you can pull off a slide. What I like to do is I kind of off center and come back. And that way I keep momentum. So if you off center your reticle, you can come back. It's kind of like a swinging motion. If you've ever, like I said, if you've ever played Counter-Strike and you've done surfing, it's the same deal. You look to the side and you press your, well in this case when I'm looking to the right, I'm pressing D on my keyboard. You're looking to the right to build up air momentum, and that allows me to build up enough momentum to initiate a slide. If I'm not looking to the right or anything, I'm not going to be sliding. And so we essentially take that and apply it to buying perks. So I'm going to buy PhD because I'm going to also show you something with PhD. So if I buy a perk, now I can, while sliding away, I can drink the perk. Rather than being stuck where I am, I can slide away. And so now with PhD, something I want to show you is slide canceling with PhD. There is one huge thing to note about slide canceling with PhD, and it's that you cannot do it with the Cerberus in hand while playing Mauer. I don't know why. We haven't figured it out, but you just cannot do what I'm about to show you when you have the Cerberus in hand. Okay? So essentially, all you're going to do is slide. Right? Pull off your regular slide. But what I do there is I hit crouch again to cancel it, and I press space. It's my jump key to stand up. And you just want to do that really fast. But you want to make sure you build up some momentum first before you just go for it. So that's all it really is just run, initiate a slide, cancel it, and then press your jump. That's all it is. Slide, cancel, stand up, slide, cancel, stand up. It looks pretty slow, but it's because I don't have stam right now. When you do this in tandem with having stamina up, it's much faster. But for just having PhD, it's still better than nothing. And this is only really fast if you have PhD. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. You'd be doing the regular sprint canceling that I've shown you. But when you have PhD, this is what you should be doing. Something I want to mention as well is a lot of people, this is pretty old and it's a debunked myth, so I hope nobody still does this, but just in case. The stamina tier 5 max increase, where is it here? Tier 1 increases back pedal speed, which makes it obviously you move faster when walking backwards. This does not make you go faster during the step and the D-Machine Easter egg where you're holding the gold ball. A lot of people used to think that walking backwards when you're escorting the ball down to the med bay, you would walk faster if you were going backwards. It's not true. So please do not doing it is just making it harder for yourself, not being able to see where you're going. Walking forward is the exact same as walking backwards.
And the same thing goes for using equipment while sprinting. It doesn't make you go faster, it just allows you to hold equipment while you're sprinting. That's all it does, because without this, if you pulled out your equipment in the middle of a sprint, it would stop your sprint. This does not make you go faster, it simply allows you to hold equipment while you're sprinting, and that's another common myth that people believe. It's not true. If you're holding equipment, then you're just holding equipment. There's nothing that changes about your movement speed. Okay, the next movement tech is something we call ledge sliding, and all that really is when you're coming near an edge, falling off of it with a slide. It's kind of a bad spot to demonstrate, so let me find a new spot here. And with this, all you really want to do, and this is a good spot here, is rather than dropping off of the ledge and losing that momentum by just dropping, what you can do is when running at the ledge, time a jump so you land right on the edge of it and end it with a slide. And that boosts you further than it would if you simply fell off of the ledge. Learning where these ledges are that you can maximize this kind of movement can be tricky, because there's some that are a little bit more complicated than others, especially in D Machine itself. But a common one I find myself doing is when I have this portal here during the diary step on the Easter egg, I'll take this portal, I'll run this way, and I'll jump, and that gets me to where I want to go further and faster. So ledge sliding is just another movement tip. Making sure you jump at the right time. Getting the timing down is a little bit tricky if you haven't done it before, but just landing right on the edge, and while in the air, initiate a slide. It'll shoot you off of a ledge. Pretty common in Outbreak and Mauer, but mostly in DM, I would say. It's a very vertical map, so ledge sliding, movement tip. So, I'm just going to demonstrate a couple more examples of the ledge sliding. I figured it's best to show more than just the one spot. So on DM specifically, these ledges here, the railings, you can actually jump and slide off of those and get a big boost. You can see how far that launched me just by jumping and sliding off. And see, sometimes that's what pretty bad example, but that's what can happen if you don't time the jump over the ledge properly, is you end up mantling if you have auto mantle on. Or see this railing again, can jump off of this and I make it all the way down here, versus if I were to climb over, burn over, and then jump. Specifically talking about grabbing this part during the Easter egg, but there's lots of different places you can do these different slides. So this is one. Down here's another good one, making it down to the bottom. There's one over in this room here I can demonstrate. Sliding off of these here from this, rather than jumping and sliding off of this part, you jump over it, land on these, and slide off of these. So you kind of have to, like, it's a really tricky one, and the timing on it is pretty finicky, but getting that as opposed to sliding off of this, and the main reason is where you need to jump to hit this, there's a roof over your head, and it messes you up, prevents you from hitting the jump. So, jumping and landing on this is really tricky. Another way I sometimes do it if I'm feeling lazy is I just walk off and then slide. Can't do it when I'm reloading, but run off and then slide off of it, just to keep that forward momentum instead of slowing down. Another big one. This is I'm just kind of going off the hook here with ledge slides, but I don't want to make sure I demonstrate as many as I can. This railing here, this is probably the hardest jump in D Machine, making this jump and keeping momentum, because you have to avoid the roof and you also have to avoid hitting your head in this little gap. This one, see, I can't even jump. That's how little room you have to hit this jump. It has to be essentially perfect, but hitting it is a huge payoff. So you can, I'll try and do my best to do it here, like that, and that launches you down into here when you're doing the fuse step. So these are kind of just the different ways you can do ledge slides. Yeah, hitting that, jump like that, or you can launch off to the side if you just aim in the right direction, and then end it with a slide, and then you can keep your momentum. So that's a little bit more in-depth for net ledge sliding. So the next big thing that I want to highlight, specifically for console players, is something called fast interact. And on PC, this is irrelevant because it's just how the game is played. But on console, if I can divert your eyes to the settings here on controller, the very, very bottom, there's an option called interact and / reload behavior. And what this is a way for you to customize how your interact button on your controller. So I guess on PS5 it'd be square, and Xbox it's X. You can choose how they interact in the map in multiplayer and zombies. So typically it is tap to reload and then hold to interact. So when you walk up to a door, it tells you to hold, and you have to wait about a half second before you can interact and open the door. But if you change the setting as a controller player to tap to interact, you can tap instantly to open doors, but then you have to hold to reload. When I play, this is on a controller, this is how I play. So that way, like on PC, when I walk up to a door, I can instantly click it and it's open. And then I can interact with what's over on the other side of the door. In this case, a zipline. So on controller, if you ever wonder how PC players can interact and open doors faster, it's because they have a tap to interact option that controllers do have, but not a lot of people utilize because they're not aware of its existence. So make sure you switch over to that, so that way you can instantly interact with doors, buy stations, stuff like that. It's really going to change up the game for you. I know it did for me. So make sure you make that switch. While I'm here on malware, it's a good time to demonstrate something we call, I call fast ziplines. And I don't think we know we do it, most players, but I think it is a tech that is important. So typically if you were to come up to a zipline, walk up to it, use it, and it places where you want to be. But if you notice, it kind of, you keep momentum and it launches you a little bit forward. It doesn't just drop you dead in your tracks. Demonstrate again. See, it kind of throws you a little bit. So what I like to do is when I take a zipline, at the end of the zipline, I slide. And you get even further than you did before. Because in order to slide in Cold War, your character needs momentum, and the zipline provides enough momentum for you to pull off a slide. I'll demonstrate again. If I slide, I can point it where I want to go, and now I'm all the way over here, instead of just stopping dead in my tracks up here. I can make it all the way over here with a slide. So making sure you take that momentum opportunity and slide at the end of your zip line is a good thing to keep up with practice. Big slides. Another thing that I like to do, I'm not sure if it is actually helping when I do it, but I like to jump when I come out of zip line, because typically when you jump at it and you're in the air, you can grab it what feels a little bit faster, rather than walking up and taking that animation to be in the air. When you jump, you're already in the air and it cuts straight to the animation. I'll try and demonstrate that again. So instead of being on the ground and your character having to do the animation to reach up and grab and then start. If you run up and jump at the zip line, you're already in the air and it cancels out the animation of needing to lift up. And you take the zip line faster. And with the last tip, the tap to interact on controller, you wouldn't be able to do this if you had the hold to interact, because by the time you would finish holding, you'd be back on the ground. So with the new tap to interact option, you can pull this off and then pull off a 6 slide. So that's how to prioritize movement on zip lines. And this applies, of course, to Outbreak as well and Forsaken, where there are zip lines. It's really good on the Forsaken map with the zip lines that come all the way down from the tower. So now that I've launched Outbreak and quit out, without having to play, simply launching the game, I can come into D Machine, which is a pretty good example because this is the first map and this has probably the most instances where you would use our extended reach. If I come over here, for the part that typically requires the Wonder Weapon, in order to use the right click ability to bring that part over here, can't get it. But with our new extended reach, I can stand just below it and I can jump, and you can see it prompts me to grab it. So now I can grab it without needing the Wonder Weapon.
Marking waypoint.
All of that simply because I was able to launch Outbreak. You don't need to play, you don't need to do anything different. All you need to do is launch Outbreak. But it is important to note that once you've quit your game, it doesn't matter if you quit match. You can quit match as many times as you want. But once you've quit out of the game and you have to reload an instance of the game, in order to re-enable the extended reach, you have to launch Outbreak again. Just once. That's all it takes. So be aware of that. If you launch it and then you quit your game and you come back on the next day, you won't have your extended reach because you need to relaunch Outbreak. So the next important movement tech used during speedruns is our Shroud. So you can see in the bottom down here, I have a full charge of Shroud, and I'm on the step on the machine to get pack a punch machine. So I've hit the portal, and I've come up the stairs. Portal down there, come up the stairs, and it's going to be left or right, as we know. Normally, what one would have to do is run all the way up top, jump up through knock, come down, go left, and run there. However, Shroud has a hidden ability. I would say it's hidden, because most people don't know about it. But with Shroud, you can actually go through walls, so long as the area on the other side of the wall is an area you have unlocked via points. So in this case, this door right here, if I line up with it, well, not necessarily just this door, but this wall, if I line up with it, on the other side is pond. So if I'm over here, and I just run at the wall and use my Shroud, I come through on the other side. Now, I can run over to my tunnel without having to go all the way around. I skip out an entire routing section simply by using my Shroud to get through a wall. And that way I can get here quicker. So that's just about the first prime example of getting through a wall with a Shroud.
Escort.
So a little bit of Outbreak here. A feature I want to show on Outbreak is during the parachuting that you'll be doing throughout the Easter egg. There's a way to actually increase the distance that you can achieve with your parachute. If you've played Warzone before, old Warzone, you'll know about this, but essentially, when you pull your chute, if you fly sideways in the direction you want to head, you'll actually fall slower than if you were to go forwards. So if I wanted to reach the other side of the map, I'm going to fly sideways rather than forwards, because for whatever reason, flying sideways grants you further distance. So whenever you're playing Outbreak and you're in your parachute,
and you want to make a further distance than what you might be able to do going forward, just fly sideways, and then you'll be able to make it a further distance. So with this, I can fly sideways, and you just follow it a little bit slower. So make sure you're utilizing that. So the next major feature I want to highlight here is portals, and this only applies to Forsaken, really, because it has the most portals. It's kind of the only instance where you're going to be using portals as much as you can. And essentially, there's a delay between when you swap weapons and when you can interact with the portal, as well as when you use equipment and when you can interact with the portal. So if I don't use any equipment and I walk up to this portal, I can enter it. However, let's say I'm over here and I'm running with this for whatever reason and I put it away, I can't enter it. I have to wait until it cools down. I'll demonstrate again. Put it away. Can't enter it now. So you want to make sure you don't, like, let's say the zombies behind you and you're running at the portal and you turn around and you throw a stun. Can't use it until it goes away. So you just want to avoid doing that really at all costs. The other thing too, it applies when you're swapping weapons. So if I go in and I do this, I can't enter right away. If I don't do that, I can enter right away. So whenever you're dealing with any of the portals, whether they be the ones up there or the one right here, never swap before you're about to go in. So something I want to highlight here, this isn't my WR Mauer run, but it is my PB before having done the WR. And in this PB, I pull off what we're calling the Mauer dupe that myself and Big Boy have discovered. So I've seen a lot of people ask me how I do this in the WR run. And in the WR run, I do mess it up. So I've got this run here, this PB. In this PB, I pull off the dupe flawlessly. And so I'm going to use this as my example. And basically, it's a variation of a glitch that's in Outbreak that I'm going to show after this, that we call the retrieve duplication glitch. And essentially what it allows you to do is duplicate crafted items. And so normally in the Mauer Easter egg, you would have to call in 2 batches of megatons and then use each split to craft a total of 4 uranium devices. But with this method, what it allows you to do is duplicate, as you'll see here. So with one, I craft one and I have one on the table. And that allows me to make 2 with one. And then what I can do is do it again, and that way I now have 4. 2 crafted, 1 from the megaton, and then 1 that I still have remaining from duplication. I'll go into further detail on how exactly this works during the Mauer Easter egg speedrun tutorial. But for now, this is kind of all you really need to know. Is it's a way that allows us to duplicate these items. It's pretty difficult to pull off unless you're on console. We've actually learned that it's easier to pull off with controller. I'm not sure why, but if you're on keyboard and mouse, it is still possible, but it is much harder to pull off than it is on controller. So this is the example of the retrieve outbreak glitch that I just talked about. This is Big Boy's Outbreak world record. So he's playing retrieve right now, and essentially what he's going to do is, with the 1 canister he's collected, during the deposit, when this loading bar is essentially full, basically full, he's going to drop the canister he's holding and back up while still committing and holding the interact button on the canister. Doing so drops the canister on the ground and also fills up 1 out of 2 of the slots on the retrieve rocket, so he can now walk up with his duplicated one, place it in, and without having to collect both canisters, he's completed the retrieve objective. And that's basically how you do the retrieve outbreak glitch. The absolute final thing that I'm going to show you is only relevant to co-op, and essentially what it is going down for points. This is something that was used when Cold War first came out. It was a really popular strategy used by low rounders in order to gain enough points to open up the entire map on the lowest round possible. But what we do in the speedruns is we use it to respawn our teammates on a specific round to give them a number of points without having them require kills. So in this example, in the 4P D-Machine Easter egg speedrun, 2 players, you can see, are going to go down in the middle of round 2. And that way, I'll skip ahead here, they go down, they die out during round 4, but before the round has started. And that way, it still registers them as respawning on this round. And you can see they're respawning with 4,000 points without having to get any kills. And so that's just a strategy we use in 4-player co-op in most of the maps. I think only Forsaken and D-Machine, because they're the only 2 maps where you are in a starting room for longer than 2 rounds. And so this allows everyone to have a good number of points, and we can open up the map pretty early. So that's the last strategy used in Cold War speedrunning. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here today. A lot of these tips are just kind of things we've come across playing ourselves and what we've discovered and built as a community so far. It's a pretty small community, so the goal with this video is to bring in more people into the speedrunning Cold War community, so that way there's more competition and it's got more players going on it right now. There will be a link in the description to a Google document that will have a lot more information regarding class setups and weapon attachments, things like that, that you can go to and view. So if you have any questions about what kind of classes you need, what kind of attachments you use, you can go there. Or if there's any questions that can't be answered there or weren't answered in this video, you can go into the comment section and leave them there. I'll be answering some questions over the next few days in the comments, so feel free to leave them there. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the video and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.